town square of Yazd. This is also World Heritage Site by the way. Okay, so done with Iran. So, does anyone recognize this place? Yeah, this is the place where you enter inside and you get you meet the guy who has the goblet from where Christ died. This is a place where Indiana Jones enter. But yeah, so this is Petra from Jordan, and I mean this is I took this trip in evening. So I've been to Petra twice. So first time I went from a day trip in Egypt. So yeah, so that time I couldn't explore Petra enough, so I went another time. So Petra has not just this but a lot of other monuments to see. That's why I thought, okay, Petra is one of the most huge ancient cities I've seen. Okay. So yeah, so next images are not from heritage places. So yeah, so this is from a Central Asian country called Kyrgyzstan, and this is actually we were just driving by the road. So Kyrgyzstan is not lot of people don't visit it, but it's known for a route called the Pamir Highway, which is a road which the Russians built in 70s, and that road basically stretches across Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. So there are a lot of beautiful lakes here, lakes which are above 3,000 meters, so they are all alpine lakes. This is actually not a lake but like a reservoir, but has some amazing mountains right next to it. So we stopped our car and took some photos here. So okay, anyone knows this place? Yeah, this is Bagan from Myanmar. Yeah, so this is basically a lot of temples are there, like more than 2,000 temples in a field, and yeah. So Bagan is very special because when I went back in 2015, you could take photos standing on like some part of a temple and take another temple. But now with more tourism in, they have stopped people from climbing up the temples. So it's just that that country has opened up very recently. So in 2010 only they started letting people come in and visit places without a guide, and you can explore the city, the country. But now it's getting more and more touristy. So I don't know, like, yeah, this is one more from Bagan. Yeah, this is a wooden pagoda in Mandalay in Myanmar, and yeah, so the images are. I mean, the pagoda is 14th century, so the wood has slowly dissolved with the rains. Okay, this is from so this is from a scuba diving trip which I did in Philippines. So I'm basically an advanced scuba diver. So we are allowed to dive till 35 meters or 40 meters. In Philippines, there is an island called Coron, which is famous because in the World War II, there were a lot of Japanese ships there, and the US Army bombed those ships, and a lot of, like around 30 ships sunk in a lagoon. And lagoon means they're at a diveable depth, like 35-40 meters. So this is like a diver who was ahead of me, who is entering a World War II ship. And this ship, like some of the ships still have like gun barrels, or you can see some shells, or you'll have jail cells, things like that. Like some of the World War II relics are still there, but a lot of it has been taken by junkyard scrapers. So only the hull or some of the items would still be there. Okay. So this is from Russia. So I went to Russia. A lot of people go to Russia to do the Trans-Siberian. So I also was doing the Trans-Siberian, but I was traveling to Russia in winters because I wanted to go here. This is Lake Baikal in Siberia, and I went here in winters because I wanted to dive in Lake Baikal while it's frozen. So you can open up a card and you can dive down there. And also the countryside looks like black and white with the snow. So this is on Lake Baikal. These are actually hovercrafts. So you can like so in winter it's especially different because the temperature is like minus 20 degrees Celsius. So yeah, so Russia transforms in a different place. In Siberia is even much colder.
Are they tanks or something?
They are overcraft.
Okay.
So what, like there are a lot of activities happening. So this is like a village on a shore of Lake Baikal, and it's like 80 kilometers from the nearest town. And there are a lot of activities actually happening. Like people are there just to do roller skating, ice skating, and there are people who are selling fish. A lot of things you can actually do on the shore. It's like a beach town, but the beach thing is frozen. That's all. Okay. So more images from Russia. These are all Russian winters. So this is like a monastery, like a church, but yeah, with snow. Yeah, these are graveyards in snow in Russia. So yeah, these are all Russian snow images. This is a strange thing. We went to a city in Russia, which is on the border with Mongolia. So it has a statue. It had the biggest statue of Lenin in the world. And when the USSR fell, they broke down that statue and sold the parts. But only the head is left there. This is the biggest Lenin head in the world. The city is called Ulan-Ude. Yeah, so this photo is from, so this is basically showing two countries. So this part is Afghanistan and this part is a country called Tajikistan. So I was traveling in Tajikistan and the Pamir highway, which is through Tajikistan, you have Afghanistan right next to it. So this is Panj River, and for 4-5 days you are traveling next to Afghanistan. So this is actually a bridge, and if you have Afghan visa, you can cross this bridge, go to the border check post, and enter Afghanistan, and then travel inside. And these are all actually safe villages, and some of these villages have like once in a week they'll have like markets on Friday or Saturday, and you can give your passport to the guard and visit those markets and come back. So yeah, and I actually have a photograph of this is like a Afghan village which I've just shot from the other side of the river. So the river is like, so Afghanistan is right next to the river, so it's like 10 meters or 15 meters across. Yeah, so this is another high altitude lake which I saw in Kyrgyzstan. Tajikistan. Yeah, this is Tajikistan. So this is a lake called Bulunkur. It's around 4,000 meters altitude in Tajikistan. And yeah, so in this case, so Tajikistan shares a border with China. So in this lake, actually, this is China and this is Tajikistan. So they have a border which is not unlike our border. So our borders are very, you cannot like come so much close to a border, but there they have a road which is going right next to the border, and it's not like there are no guns or there are no soldiers posted next to the border. So yeah, so we actually drove along this road and we entered Kyrgyzstan to the border. So yeah, I just put it to show that not all borders are as volatile as our borders. Okay. So yeah, so this is also from Tajikistan, and this is Afghanistan, and these are Hindu Kush mountains. And this is a river which is coming from Hindu Kush, and this is Panj River. So I've taken this photo from, so there's a fortress which I'll show next. I've taken this photo from a fortress which is on just on a lookout post, and before all of these countries were formed, like 100 years ago, these countries were not there. So a lot of caravans used to pass through, and this was part of a Silk Route, and that's where I will take you next to Silk Route countries. Yeah, so this is that fortress, which is like overlooking on the top of a hill. And yeah.
So how you plan here, like?
So there's a road going. You can drive a car all the way and then you don't have to select it. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone know which mountain is this? Yeah, this is Everest. So this is a part of Everest which not a lot of people go to. like a lot of you would have heard about Everest Base Camp trek, and a lot of you would be wanting to go to Everest Base Camp trek. But this is an Everest Base Camp which anyone can go to because there's a road which goes to Everest Base Camp. So this is Everest from the Chinese, like the Tibetan side, and this is the north face of the Everest. And this is the highest. This is a monastery which is like 100 meters below it. So this is the highest monastery in the world at 4,900 meters, and that's Everest Base Camp. Sorry? No, this is a separate trip. So yeah, I'll go back to that first page and then you can ask questions. So this is basically not Everest, not face, and yeah. So I went to Tibet actually. So I was traveling across Tibet, and this photo is from Lhasa. So this is Potala Palace in Lhasa. And if you have gone to Ladakh, you would have seen Thiksey Monastery in Ladakh. So Thiksey Monastery is modeled on this, right, like 20 kilometers from Leh. Yeah, so that is based on this. They try to imitate. This is like a monastic discussion happening in one of the monasteries. So it's not in Potala Palace. While we were traveling in Tibet, there's a small town called Shigatse, and this is like a evening where monks ask each other questions, and if somebody gives the right answer, they do like this, or they basically, if somebody gives the wrong answer, they basically do this. The monk has given the wrong answer, and then they ask the question again. So that was from Tibet. This is, so I'm moving to a Silk Route country. So this image is from, this is actually a Karmasaray which has been left to get, it's fallen in disrepair actually. So this image is from Uzbekistan, in Bukhara in Uzbekistan. So this is a Karmasaray which was used when Silk Route merchants used to cross through and they needed a place to stay. So in Bukhara and in a lot of places along the Silk Route, there are these old buildings which are still there. This might have been made like somewhere in 16th, 17th century, but it's not used now. This is another image from Bukhara. It's a madrasa called, it's a mosque actually. It's a mosque called Char Minar Madrasa Mosque, and there's a madrasa there. So the word char actually comes from Uzbekistan. So a lot of words that we use, because the Mughals came from Uzbekistan, they got those words to India. So it's called Char Minar, just like we have Char Minar in Hyderabad. Called Char Minar. So this image is, so I'll just explain a bit longer story behind this image.
Burns House also.
Alexander Burns. Alexander Burns. Alexander.
There's this guy who traveled from India to like the first Western guy.
He was, there's a book, Travels to Bukhara. Travels to Bukhara.
So he basically chronicled a lot of stuff from Rajasthan before the Great War started. So he actually told the British that don't venture this area, do not come back. Never put him up. This was an 18th century guy. Went from India all the way to
So this is another place in Bukhara. This is a place where apparently so there's a short story behind this image. So you might have heard about Genghis Khan, the Mongol ruler. So the Mongol ruler actually he was planning to come to India because he had heard about India and it's a lot of gold in India. India is like a golden world and all that. So he's planning to come to India after conquering much of China. In that time, what happened is some of the Mongol merchants who were traveling in Uzbekistan in Bukhara, they were killed here in Bukhara. So, and that news reached Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan sent two of his envoys to question why his merchants were killed because it's a free trade area. And those envoys were also, one of them was, so the Emir of Bukhara felt challenged, like, who is this Genghis Khan? So he killed one of the envoys and chopped off his head and gave the other envoy his head to take it back to Genghis Khan, as a show off. So that enraged Genghis Khan so much that he decided that, okay, let me postpone India for a while and let me move to Central Asia and teach them a lesson. So Genghis Khan moved all of his army all across from Mongolia all the way to across the Taklamakan desert. And here also there is one desert before this city. And he sacked this city for 6 months. Finally, when he entered this city, all of the Amir and his army had fled. And he climbed on top of, so the mosque has a pulpit where the Imam will say the prayer. So he climbed on top of that and he threw the Quran, because he didn't recognize it, threw away the Quran, and he said that, gather all the people who are there in the city. And once around 1 lakh of people were gathered in that square, he said that, where is your king? And when the king was not there, he said, I will, so people asked him, who are you? He said, I am your punishment from your God. And then he continued to, kill all of the people who were there, and the survivors, he let them go to other cities to spread that, Genghis Khan is here, and that destruction continued to many other cities in Central Asia. So this is the reason, why Genghis Khan never came to India, and why the Central Asia, actually, a lot of people in Central Asia look like Mongoloids, because Genghis Khan swept through all of those areas. Okay. Yeah, so this is an image from Khiva. It's a minaret called Kalton minaret. Huge minaret, yeah, but it's unfinished. So this is just yeah. This is also another image from Khiva, which is in Uzbekistan. So in Uzbekistan, there are 3 major Silk Route cities: Khiva, Bukhara, and Samarkand. So these are images from there. So this is a top view from this minaret. I've taken a top view. Yeah, there's another top view. So there are a lot of old buildings in the Silk Route which are still here. This is like an old town which is very much preserved since like 14th, 15th century. Okay, so this is a mausoleum for a person who came to India as an invader. This is a mausoleum of Temur, Amir Temur, Temur the Lame, who came to India, and this is his mausoleum in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. So there he is like a father of their country, and there he is regarded as like great person. His statues like everywhere on big squares, like we have MG Road, they have like Temur Road. So this is Temur's mausoleum, and it's this style of architecture itself is called like Temurid style. So a lot of buildings there are in that style. So yeah, these photos are all from. So this is a part of a bigger ensemble of buildings. So it's called Sher Dor Madrasa. So the word Sher also comes from Uzbekistan. The word Dor also comes from Uzbekistan. It's called Sher Dor because there is an image of a lion here. So yeah, it looks especially beautiful in the night. And yeah, that's it. So I had these images, and I'll go back to the main page.
Yeah, so now like anyone, if you have any question, you can ask to Anshul. But like whenever you are going to ask a question or something, you need to say your name with the adjective and where are you from. So if consider he is Anshul, so you would say adventurous Anshul. If he is Raul, so he would say Rocky, like Rocky Raul. But you need to make sure whatever the introduction you are doing, you start with the adjective. Yeah. So yeah, good. Anyone have any questions? You can ask to Anshul.
Yeah. So I try to like have countries which. So I've done a lot of countries in Southeast Asia, a lot of scuba diving here and in places, but I kept those images related to places which are little less visible. But yeah, I mean, you're free to ask questions from other places. If I've been there, I'd be happy to do that.
So anyone have any questions?
Or if you have questions regarding like how I planned those travels or longer travels, things like that, like I can answer.
How did you manage with the job?
Yeah, so the thing is, there are two approaches to it. Like first one was that a lot of countries in Southeast Asia. So I did like as 1 week, 2 week trips from Bangalore to get like AirAsia stays, and you book them like 6 months in advance, and you can plan it out. So like Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. Most of them I did through 1 week, 2 week holidays. So like you plan it through say Diwali time or Christmas time. Whenever you have holidays, you club it together. But two of my major travels, like this whole Trans-Siberian. So this whole Trans-Siberian thing, where I first, so I flew from, I did the whole route, this one, and this one the Central Asia route. So I got like 2 sabbaticals from my job. So I managed to convince them that travel is important and whatnot. And yeah, so I showed them this. So I was working in Accenture. Okay, so I was working in Accenture when I got my first sabbatical for 3 months. I was working for 2 years. After 2 years, I said, okay, I'm doing Trans-Siberian, and I said I'm doing like 1 month mountaineering course. So if you have not done mountaineering course, you can still ask. If you want to take something, especially you Aditya. So I know you would want to do a mountaineering course. No, there are people your age also, 60 years of age also. Yeah. So yeah, so
Other questions,
yeah.
how many days in a year you might go?
Huh? How many days?
In a year you are 8 hours per day, like that.
No, how many days of the year?
How many days in a year I work? Oh, that.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the trips, I'm mostly working. But like, you go to office, there's no work, then, you have to like pretend to work.
How do you convince your manager?
See,
What do you do?
No, see, if you, the key to that, I feel, see, is be friends with your manager, that's the first thing. Second thing is plan in advance. So usually, if you plan like 3 months before, 4 months before, you would have a better idea to tell him like, boss, I'm going, like, if you tell now that, you're going to Christmas, probably still, 6 months later, so it's a good time to tell. So I always used to plan, like, what I used to do was, I used to book tickets whenever there was a sale. So like, for AirAsia, they would announce sale 1 year in advance. So I would get like 10,000 rupees tickets returned to, say, Thailand, or Malaysia, or somewhere. So I'll book those tickets and keep it. And I'll plan later. Because I already have tickets, I would, eventually go. But my flights is sorted, and I know the dates. So I would keep it as a pipeline. Just like managers have a pipeline of projects, you keep your pipeline a little bigger and tell them like 3 months in advance and things like that. So I mean, last minute travels I rarely do. So I'm not. So unlike plan the unplanned, I'm not an unplanned person. I would plan things like 1 year in advance. And especially like sabbaticals and longer trips where you have to travel because you have to take visas for everywhere. So you have to juggle all of that, and especially when you're doing like 3 countries, 4 countries, you need to plan. You need to plan like well in advance, like at least depending on where you have to go, research out places. So yeah, especially tell your manager or whomsoever if you have to like. That's the key. If you are planning, and if you are also sometimes manager would ask you, are you willing to like change it, make it 2 week to 1 week, and if you budge, that's you just made his job easy. So you don't have to make his job easy. If you are telling 3 weeks in advance, 3 months in advance, you should get that holiday, unless I don't know. It has happened very rarely that something which I have planned and booked, I have had to cancel. Because I usually plan well in advance. Yeah. Okay.
just want to know, after Iran, do you think there will be any problems traveling to US or?
I don't know. I've not been to US after that.
But do you check? Because there are obviously a lot of these guys I know who are doing this review. I don't know if they are traveling this time.
So I don't know. See, I already had a US visa before I went to Iran, and I don't know. See, flying from here would not be an issue. But once I reach the immigration, I don't know what they will do. They might. I don't know actually.
Where do you check?
No. So if you are a European, once you go to Iran, you cannot travel to US. Even Europeans would need a US visa.
That's right.
So I don't know about that, but yeah, I mean, actually US is doing that for a lot of countries. Like even for Cuba, I heard, they are banning travels to a lot of countries, not only Iran. If you want to say Afghanistan or Pakistan or even I had a Bangladeshi visa on my passport, and my travel guys were saying that might be an issue and all that, but they didn't look at the visas or anything, because I had like 2 passports stuck together, so they just so when I went in the line, there was like 2 rejections before me, but for me they just like, okay, you travel a lot.
But do you travel inside Pakistan?
No, I have not been to Pakistan or Afghanistan.
So it was only the Silk Route?
Yeah, it was only the Silk Route which I went to. Pakistan again, it's little difficult to go. Either need to have a relative or you need
Yeah,
to
but I
go.
read about that. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, I have not been to US after that. But again, some people might get through. See, if they see your Iranian visa, then they might ask questions. So the lot of people, what they do is, if you have already this, if you have Iran visa on your passport, you can report that passport as lost, or you can not show that passport. So then they'll have no way to track it, because they cannot track that you went to some other place. So once that passport is used, then report that passport as lost, and just keep it at home, then get a new passport.
So can you give some details on I've been a really question understanding like between these countries, Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan, right? Is there something you talk to the people out there? What's the culture like?
So the culture is actually still somewhere in between a mixture of what Mongol influence is there. So you would still see Mongolian houses which are called gurs.
Yeah.
So they'll still have those houses. So they'll still have those houses in the traditional housing. Their hats, their traditional dressing style is still a lot of influence. Because I went to Mongolia, so I could see the source from where all of that is coming. But in terms of religion, all of them are Muslim countries. But having said that, they're not as rigid as Iran or other Muslim countries. So you will see vodka or alcohol flowing freely. So in their emotion and sentiments and values, they are more Russians. So you would, almost anyone who is educated or born before 90s would know Russian. So you would feel like I went to Almaty so it feels like a Russian city. Almaty is in Kazakhstan. And even Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, the women, they dress in the Russian style and they'll wear coat, all those styles. I mean, they might have few more colorful dresses, but it's a mix between Russian with Mongoloid.
And what's the general occupation like? Mostly farmers or?
In the village side, yes, mostly farmers. So, I mean, the Pamir highway that we did, it was mostly farmlands, or they had a lot of apple orchards, mostly farmers, yeah. There's not a lot of population there, actually. Not a lot of population. Mostly people are relying on the land.
So you've done it in a group or you've done it alone?
So, what
Because
we...
there is this company Overland also who's been doing the road trip.
You can do it yourself if you are 3-4 people actually.
Yeah.
So you can hire a vehicle, and that vehicle you can take it through Kyrgyzstan, you can take it through 2-3 countries depending on that vehicle's permit. But yeah, so you don't need to do it. Even if you're not hiring a vehicle, there are places where you can reach and find other travelers and pool up to share a ride or something. And a lot of people actually go to Kyrgyzstan, they go just for hiking. There are a lot of beautiful mountain valleys for hiking, like 4,000 meters that area, not 5,000, 4,500, that range. And there are a lot of good climbs in Kyrgyzstan. There are 7,000 meter peaks which people go to, and they are like affordable climbs. So there are a lot of mountain, like it's part of lesser. It's not Himalayas per se. It's actually Pamirs and then Tien Shan ranges. But yeah, there are a lot of different kinds of tourism.
How expensive is it?
It's not very expensive as you know. It's almost same as India. Like we were getting homestays, stay for like.
If you've done a complete route, let's say, how expensive was it? Because I know the cost which the overland guys are asking for. So I want to understand now. It's very expensive. It was around 20 lakh.
No.
It was around 49 days in which they were covering the complete city. So that's why I wanted to know how expensive.
So the thing is, see, apart from, so there's one country in the middle here called Turkmenistan. So that country, the thing is, you can only go it with a tour guide if you want to go more than 5 days. If you want to go less than 5 days, you can take a transit visa. But the transit visa comes with some limitations that you're usually doing from Iran to Uzbekistan overland. So you would get that transit visa, and you might get it, you might not get it. So we didn't get it, so we had to fly over that. So it depends. But Uzbekistan is pretty cheap. You can do it on your own. And now it's from this July, it's starting to become e-visa. Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan are e-visas. Yeah, there are a lot of European people who travel to Uzbekistan. So we saw a lot of European tours, like German, Spanish, old people on bus tours. They were literally filling Uzbekistan, but no Indians. And the best part about Uzbekistan was, like, we entered Bukhara, and so we took a sharing taxi from Khiva to Bukhara, and we reached Bukhara like 7 in the evening. And we reached this town square, and there's some singing program which is happening in the town square, and there's a Russian girl who's singing Hindi songs. Nobody is getting Hindi songs there. Nobody. She's singing Hindi songs, and she's singing like 3-4 Hindi songs she's singing. And we get out, and we, so that is the level of, fascination with Indian culture. And then we found that, in every house on TV, they watch Indian soaps. So they watch Indian soaps dubbed in Russian. So when we went to restaurants, we saw like, there's a TV going on and everyone is watching like Indian soaps. They're seeing like Sindoor ki thali gir gayi. And wherever we are going, like on the streets, people are saying namaste, and people are wanting to take selfies. Nobody wants to take selfies with like white people there. Who wants to take selfies with you? Because apparently you are a celebrity, and on their TV, just like you have like regional language specials, they had like Indian, so they had like Shahid or iska affair chal raha, all that in Russian. They are like discussing on TV news channel, what is happening in Indian cinema, all that stuff. So it's very fascinating.
This happened with me in Israel also.
Where?
In Israel.
In Israel. Now you can't go to Iran.
No, but they don't stamp the passport.
Okay, so there's no proof.
There's no proof because they understand. So
Okay.
they give you a slip and they stamp it on that.
Okay, so you don't have a visa.
No, it's
Optional.
no visa. So for instance.
But exit stamp, do you have it from?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. They don't stamp and they don't use your passport.
Okay. Then, yeah. Because when we went to Iran, they grilled us like, have you been to Israel? A lot of questions about that.
So do you have any language barriers there with this Russian race?
Yeah, language barriers will be there, but you will find someone who would know something, or probably you'll have to.
Google Translate.
Yeah, like for example, once in Russia, while traveling in Russia, me and my friends, we used to cook our own food, because when I went, Russia was double the, like now it's same rate as India, ruble, but in 2014 when I went, ruble was twice the Indian money. So we used to like get some stuff from supermarket and cook in our hostel. So we went to one supermarket, and in supermarket they had like cooked meals also. So they had like some vegetables, some meats cooked. So there were old Russian babushkas who were like behind the counter, and we tried to ask, which street is this? They're pointing. So me and my friend, like, they were trying to say we couldn't get it, and finally the old lady is like this. Oh. They're like okay, fine. Like, then we got it. So there are language barriers, but you will find a way out of it. There will be a way, probably.
So like in Iran, we learned that numeric.
So in Iran, everyone was telling us like different prices for the bus because if anyone who's trying to tell you in English might swindle you. So we learned the alphabets we learned the numerals. What does the numeral mean? Because we spent like close to a month in Iran. So we used to know like what those numerals mean, what is the bus timing. Like you could read at least the numerals. And and that's all.
Were you fascinated by being an Indian traveling there? I mean,
yeah, you don't see Indian travelers in Iran.
that's right. So
Yeah.
were they really happy?
Yeah, so Iran is one of the most beautiful and hospitable places that we have been to, because everyone, once they know you're from India, like people would walk to you, and like we were using the metro, or people just, they'll ask you from where you're from, and they would try to, invite you to have tea with them or things like that. And I mean, they are hospitable to everyone, but knowing that you're from India, and to an extent they have like some bond with India, because a lot of people would say they have visited India, or they have some business or something like that, or they are fascinated by the same culture. Like one girl told us that their building is not as beautiful as Taj Mahal.
So a lot of them are fascinated by Bollywood, for sure, because this is what I've noticed also. I was traveling to some places. For them, it's like, okay, Shah Rukh Khan, this is it. What do you
Any question?
Yeah, any other question? Let's go.
Iran would be my favorite country in terms of architecture and history, but in terms of, because I do a lot of travel for scuba diving, I would say Indonesia would be my favorite in terms of beautiful dive sites, and yeah. See, Southeast Asia, it's pretty easy to get visa on arrival. In major issues are when you're trying to do multiple countries one after the other, because you have to usually give like a return tickets to certain place, and you have to show like stay for every day. So it's a bit difficult. But like for example, when I was doing Russia, Mongolia, and China, I tried to first get the Russian visa, but they said that first get Mongolian visa, so that it is established that you can exit Russia. So those kind of paperwork issues will be there if you're planning a huge overland trip. But you'll have to, that's why you have to plan well in advance. But yeah, you will have for example, when I did the stamps, the entire Central Asia, I was getting a lot of visas stamped on the road. So like Iran visa, I didn't get it in India. I went to Turkey and I got it in Turkey. Then Uzbekistan visa, I got it in some other country. Then in Iran, I got the Kyrgyzstan visa. So I was getting visas on the road also. So a lot of us don't consider that we can get visas in different countries as well. But we can. And a lot of countries here are now visa on arrival or e-visa or something. So that can also work.
So paperwork can be done.
Can be done if you want to.
But
It's a hassle.
So if you're doing it for money,
Yeah, so we used to visit the consul, and we used to he used to ask us random questions like why are you here and all of those things, But it's fun also. You go and knock at the consulate, meet the consul himself, and yeah, like once when we were getting our Uzbekistan visa, the consul so we got the Uzbekistan visa done in Azerbaijan, in Baku. So there the consul, when he got to know that we are from India, he started speaking Hindi. And he started speaking Hindi because when Uzbekistan was part of Russia, he had gone and studied in St. Petersburg, and he had learned Hindi in 60s. And at that time he thought he would go to India, and he was fascinated by Indian culture and all those things. So he spoke to us all throughout half an hour when we were there. He
Sang
spoke to us
songs.
in Hindi, even sang a song to us. The best part is he asked us, okay, when do you want to go? We said 15 days we want. He said take 20 days, 25 days, it's not enough. So where will you meet? Like, so a lot of times the visa things are made difficult by not going in person. Like we felt that we went to each of the visa consulates and it's a little easier to do because when they see you, they know that you're a genuine person.
How do you research places?
Sorry.
How do you research places?
I read. So I read as in, I read a lot about, say, like before going to Tibet and a lot of those places, I read a lot of books on them. For Central Asia, I read a lot of books on the Silk Route heritage. There's a beautiful book called Silk Roads, which came out recently. A lot of other books. So I like to read books. So I read a lot of history, and as you can see, I showed a lot of like architecture, historical sort of things. So I would plan like years in advance. So like the Central Asia thing, I planned probably like 2 years. I started reading books and stuff like that. So yeah, so then I researched it out. But then groundwork you would have to do. You would have to research out visa rules. You would have to find forums. You would have to find out okay what is an entry exit point, things like that. That groundwork you'll have to do for a lot of stuff.
Any near to death moments like while traveling to 63 countries?
Not
No.
that, but that Georgia incident. when
I mean,
border.
not near death actually. I mean, we have been told not to enter certain countries, certain borders we have been denied entry, but no, nothing like near death. Like we had some accidents in certain countries, like in Kyrgyzstan while driving our vehicle, we slammed into one other guy's vehicle, but nobody died. So yeah, I mean nothing near death. I mean we avoided death. Like, probably scuba diving, there might be like few incidents, but like I mean like yeah, but nothing major. Like pretty safe person. Plan things.
Did you do all this on a budget?
Yeah, I mean I have limited money. So yeah.
Akshay want to ask like if you're a millionaire or something. Yeah.
No, I save up like
Like,
salary.
did you stay in hostels or?
Yeah. So I did couchsurf because I like wanted to stay in a hostel and things like that. Yeah, everywhere you find hostels, or if they're not hostels, you would have something which would work out cheap. So yeah. I mean most of it like Central Asia you have hostels or homestays. So there is a network. You are like not away from civilization.
When you say plan, you plan that as well, or was that on the board?
Depends. Like in some places, like for visa and all, you would have to plan. So you would have to know, okay, which are the places and all that. Let's say when I visit Russia, for to get the visa in India, you have to show all the bookings. You have to get every paperwork. So you have to do it beforehand. Will not give you a visa. But like when I entered, say for example, when I entered Iran, I had not made all the travel bookings. So I only knew like first 2 places where I'm going to. And then I, depending on my planning, okay, I want to visit more places. I kept on making bookings. So it depends. I mean, if you are comfortable, it depends. Some places the visa rule doesn't allow you to be even flexible for a day. So like I showed Russia, I showed them an 18-day itinerary. They gave me an 18-day visa. And I had to exit like on the dot. But some countries will give you like a month. Like China would give you like a month. You can decide to go to the.
So anyone have any other questions? Yeah.
So what plans now?
I just like this year I'm actually not traveling much. So I've decided like because like, so last year I didn't do some travel. So this year I have to like save some money. So this year I just did like 2 weeks trek in Himalayas and I have a 2 week scuba diving trip like in Devon.
You must have some idea, right, of upcoming.
So I like to do overland travels. So I want to explore continent by continent. So this is Asia. I have already traveled 30 countries in Europe. I have like 2-3 countries now in Europe. So I would want to explore Africa, maybe do like from top to bottom, do like start from Egypt and go all the way to South Africa. And then mostly overland journeys is what I would like to do. I work in a small startup. But sorry. Startups have more.
No, that is not true.
It depends.
So
I did a 6-month travel last year. So actually not as like I had a 6-month sabbatical, but 2 months I was trekking. So 4 months 4 months is the longest I've done.
yeah, anyone have any other
You're
question?
not fired when you travel.
I had a sabbatical. I had like proper approved sealed letter HR which he does. No, not like we would. I made a PPT for my CEO and like showed him like a PPT he was making and because I am business analyst I have to like show budget like proper CEO was like impressed in 5 minutes. He's like go GM. And this is in a startup. I did it when I was working in Accenture also. So that time also I did it for like many levels of managers.
Can you forward that? Like they're trained to say no to people like us.
Yeah, they are trained, but you have to like if you really want to do it, you would do it. But you have to like make it like you have to say that this is your cause something like that. I don't know, probably like if you have to come up with a plan which sounds huge, probably. Because if you want to stay 6 months off and you don't have a plan, then it's just a waste of time. Then you are like then you just say that once you get the leave you'll figure it out, you'll go to Himalaya, something you will do, but it will be a waste of time. So I said this is my plan is and I will come on this date I will be back, or I'll inform you. So I was back at the day which I said. So that level of planning I had, I could convince.
Yeah, you can copyright the template of the presentation and share it.
That
No, actually,
presentation
yeah.
is very fancy.
Yeah, like stuck a lot of photos.
A lot of mountain photos and all.
Yeah. Yeah, anyone who want to add on any questions? Yeah. And actually we forgot with everyone's introduction. Yeah, so like we can at least have the introduction now. Yeah, starting from that. Yeah. So I would just tell like you need to tell your name with the adjectives, like starting from the first letter of your name. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm Shreya. I'm
Shaktiman
super,
Shreya.
super.
Yeah. Yeah, you can continue. Yeah.
Sounds like a tractor.
So I'm Hamini and I can't think of a better word than brilliant to start with the same letter as my name.
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Mine is Adarsh.
Amazing. We are running out of days now. Adorable.
You have not told your name, right?
I don't know. I don't.
Yes. No, you didn't told. Yeah, good.
I'm Tanmay and talent.
Way to victorious way.
I'm Pradnya.
Oh, yeah. You can go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, you can go ahead.
I'm argumentative, but
I'm Hina.
Yeah.
Vijayalakshmi with 3 R's.
Yeah, louder. Everyone should hear.
And I'm Vijayalakshmi.
Yeah.
I'm Dheeraj, scuba diver for diving.
Yeah, you can go from back.
Aditya, awful association.
I can address myself as Sassy Adventures.
Pooja, and I'm peace loving Pooja.
Louder so everyone need to hear that, right? Yes. Yeah.
I'm Lama.
Yeah. Let us hear everyone, like if everyone is speaking, just listen to them. Yeah. Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead.
I'm Vamsi, Wanderer Scientist. That's my handle on Instagram.
I am Arpita, passionate.
Okay. Awkward Aprameya.
You know, Harsha, they call me Kung Fu Panda.
They call you
Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu Panda. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I was Rahul here, so you can call me respectable Rahul. Speedy Muslim. Vishwesh, Rider. Yeah. Running Rahul. Shining Surya.
Yeah, you have left, I think, right? Yeah, yeah. Anyone has left with the introduction? Yeah, you are sorry. Yeah, let's do it.
Raksha and Raj.
Yeah. Seema, Prakriti.
Okay, sweet Seema. Peace, Prakriti.
Yeah, you can go.
Khatri Kevin.
Ganesh, good Ganesh.
You could have used God Ganesh.
Yeah, so now like if anyone have a story should share, you can also share your story. So yeah, like yeah, and even if you have any other questions for Anshul, you can ask. Yeah. If anyone have a story to
Yeah, we're
share.
actually in the session also. After that also, if anyone wants to.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we're ending Anshul session. If you have any other questions, yeah, you can ask. Yeah. And yeah, like I forgot to tell what is Unplanned Stories all about. Like initially we started it out.
Yeah, so so these guys, thanks a lot to Plan the Unplanned for providing me this platform. These guys are amazing. I've trekked with them personally, and you can check out their website. There's amazing treks and treks and travels also. They started doing international travels as well.
Yeah.
You can check out their website.
We didn't ask you to tell us that.
Yeah, so now you can get it.
Yeah. So Unplanned Stories is all about like bringing in travelers, maybe photographers, or it can be any type of traveler, and bringing in everyone together and make a community like of travelers in Bangalore itself. So maybe in upcoming months we would have in more cities, but like we are bringing in like everyone one traveler. So first series was like the theme was like Northeast travel. Second series was like a girl who was about Praveshika who traveled like 13 states in 13 days on a Harley. Then this is the third time we are doing like overland travel in Asia, and we would have the fourth series soon coming up next month. Yeah, so we would keep on continuing this thing. And if you have any traveler you think like you want to like get us on board, then you also can recommend us. Yeah, and we would try to get them on board. Yeah. Woo!